Guys, we just got our first look at Cyclops in Avengers Doomsday, and this first look may have just confirmed our greatest fear for our heroes in their fight against Dr. Doom. Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy, and the third Avengers Doomsday trailer has leaked online. And while we encourage you to never look at leaks, you should always go see this trailer in the theaters as Disney intended. Just in case you haven't seen the trailer or our breakdown of it, we want to talk about it. So we're going to recap the trailer and explain why Cyclops is so upset and what this means for the movie and the different teams that we're going to see in Avengers Doomsday. But to do all this, first we need to take a look back at James Marsden's time as Cyclops from the early 2000s X-Men films, and this key moment of his brief return to the role in 2014's Days of Future Past. This is a return where he shares a scene with Wolverine, Professor X, and Jean Grey, and it perfectly sets up his role in Avengers Doomsday. So this is our third teaser for this movie. The first teaser featured the return of Steve Rogers and the confirmation that he now has a little baby. And the second teaser featured Thor praying to Odin that he may return from battle to give a life of peace to his newly adopted daughter, Love. So, do you notice a bit of a theme here? These teasers are bringing back classic characters and showing them and their newfound focus on their children, leading many to speculate that Doom could be coming for their kids.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
Now, in this video, our own Colton Ogburn theorized that not only could Doom just be coming for the kids, but that Cyclops and Jean Grey's daughter could be next on the chopping block. We know that Doom has come for Franklin Richards, who has the power cosmic, and Doom is likely going to take Love for her power from eternity. These are two power sets that are essentially the power of the universe itself. In the comics, Scott and Jean's daughter, Rachel, would also fit that bill with her having the power of the Phoenix Force. This is yet another cosmic power that would be on Doom's checklist for his plan to conquer the multiverse. And we think the reason we're seeing a battle-damaged Cyclops fall to his knees, remove his visor, and let out a tortured scream is because Doom has succeeded in taking his daughter.
Now wait a minute, when did he have a daughter? Now is he alive? I thought he died.
Well, yeah, he did die in X-Men Last Stand, one of many examples of how misused the character of Cyclops was in those early X-Men films. But the events of Days of Future Past undid this mistake and brought back both Jean and Cyclops. So let's recap. So the Fox X-Men timeline, as Deadpool said,
these timelines are so confusing.
But let me do my best to tell you the history of Scott Summers on the big screen and how those films are going to lead into his big role in Doomsday. Now, for a long time, I have doubted whether or not Tony Stark should also be Dr. Doom, but Tony does have several relatable villain traits.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, there's aspects of his personality that mean he always could have become a villain. He's obsessive, he's dedicated, he's a perfectionist. And these are actually aspects of my own personality that have helped me in life, but they've also caused me a lot of problems. Like, look, I'm pretty open about this on the channel, but for years, I've always found myself obsessing over small details or hyperfixating on things, or gotten really angry when events didn't turn out the way that I wanted. Now again, this is a lot like Tony Stark, but unlike Tony, I got into therapy and I was diagnosed with ADHD. Suddenly, like a million events in my entire life came into focus. So now, like as I'm starting the new year, I want to keep up with my therapy to get better. It's not enough just to have the diagnosis, so now we're working to watch out for behavioral triggers that I want to change. Then I'm not just reacting to my emotions all the time, I'm understanding them. And I was able to do all of this by using BetterHelp, the sponsor of this video. BetterHelp has changed my life, and I think it could change yours too. If you have your own behavioral or mental health needs, then you should try it out, and it's very easy to use. You fill out a questionnaire, and then BetterHelp will match you with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. Your therapist is based on your preferences, your own clinical experience, and more than a decade of matching expertise. But if it's not the right fit, you can switch at any time. More than 6 million people have gotten help from BetterHelp, and this is a platform you can trust. So if you click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/ScreenCrush, you'll get 10% off your first month of therapy. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. If you're interested, please click below. Now back to what I was saying. So in X-Men X2 and The Last Stand, Marsden Cyclops was really well portrayed, but just criminally underused, with those films shining the spotlight more on Wolverine. In those movies, we see Scott as a now grown-up pupil of Xavier who is in a relationship with Jean Grey, who's another one of Charles's students. In X2, Jean sacrificed herself to save the X-Men and she's drowned in a lake. Now this really screws Scott up and he's unable to cope with it. So in Last Stand, we then learn that Jean survived her drowning. Kind of. Really, her darker half, the Phoenix, survived.
The conscious Jean, whose powers were always in her control, and the dormant side, a personality that in our sessions came to call itself the Phoenix.
Now in the comics, the Phoenix Force is this cosmic power that gives Jean Grey immense godlike abilities, but also makes her a jerk face.
Stay out of my head.
So not only does the Phoenix kill Professor Xavier in Last Stand, but she also kills Scott. That's right, Jean Grey was turning people to dust years before Thanos. Anyways, Jean goes cuckoo and Magneto attempts to use her as a weapon to end humankind and place mutants at the top of the food chain where he feels they belong.
If we want freedom, we must fight for it.
And this backfires immensely and Wolverine has to kill her. In the post-credit scene of that film, we also learn that Xavier has survived. Earlier in the film, we heard Xavier discussing the morality behind consciousness transfer into a brain-dead patient.
Now, what if we were to transfer the consciousness of one person, say a father of 4 with terminal cancer, into the body of this man?
And that's exactly what Xavier did. He transferred his consciousness upon death into the brain-dead body of his convenient twin brother.
Hello, Moira.
Charles.
We then see Xavier return in the Wolverine.
As I told you a long time ago, you're not the only one with gifts.
So that's how Xavier is back and how he was able to go on to be killed again in Logan, and we're going to talk about how he's back from that death a little later in the video. But as for Cyclops, his resurrection relies on the events of X-Men Days of Future Past. In that movie, we see Wolverine travel back in time and bring together Xavier, Magneto, and Mystique to change the future. This dark apocalyptic future that Wolverine comes from is a future where mutants have been targeted and placed into camps by Bolivar Trask and his Sentinels.
Killing Trask did not have the outcome she expected. It only persuaded the government of the need for his program.
Now, when Wolverine successfully changes the past to change the future, sorry Hulk, we see a new future created. Logan wakes up in the X-Mansion, goes downstairs, and finds that many of our fallen X-Men are back from the dead, including those who died before the apocalypse. Not only is Logan reunited with Jean Grey, but also his old frenemy Scott.
Good to see you, Scott.
And what year is this scene taking place in? 2023, just a few years prior to the current MCU timeline. And we think that this new future, this Scott and this Jean are the basis for how not only Cyclops is back, but the existence of Rachel Summers as well. This scene clearly establishes that not only are Scott and Jean alive, but they are together, probably even married at this point, and they likely have a child. And that is what sets the stage for the X-Men's role in Doomsday. We could even learn that Wolverine, Xavier, and Magneto tampering with time to create this new blissful future is what put a target on their back for a multiversal incursion. Jim?
An incursion occurs when the boundary between two universes erodes and they collide, destroying one or both entirely.
I mean, think about it. That's what this entire saga has been about, going all the way back to Endgame. The Loki series explored how altering the flow of time and creating branching realities can cause total disasters. A doomsday, if you will.
He said it! He said it!
Steve Rogers traveled back in time so he could have his happily ever after with Peggy and have a baby. And the same is true here for Scott and Jean. They're both supposed to be dead, but here they are living this happy life together with a kid, making it to where not only is their universe now in the sights of Doom, but also Doom's going to be coming after their child that should not exist. So in the trailer, we see Scott down on his knees, battle damage, screaming. The X-Mansion is in flames, and behind Scott, we can see this giant Sentinel walking in the background. Now, the consensus here is that Doom has arrived in the X-Men's universe, and he used the Sentinels to attack the mansion, and we think to take Rachel. And this is what will move Scott to join the other Mad Daddies, Steve, Thor, and Reed, to chase after and defeat Doom. And that just has me so pumped. Not only are we getting Steve Rogers, Thor, Mr. Fantastic, and Cyclops finally in a movie together, but it's the same actor, James Marsden, that played him all those years ago, and he's finally getting his moment to shine. Now, speaking of the X-Men universe and Cyclops once again being played by James Marsden, I want to talk about which X-Men universe this is. So earlier we mentioned that Xavier was killed in Logan, which takes place after the new future that was created in Days of Future Past. And we also mentioned how he returned again in Multiverse of Madness. So in Multiverse of Madness, we see the Professor X of Universe 838. This Professor X is a variant of the Professor that we know. He looks like him, sounds like him, acts like him, but he is from another universe. And now's probably a good time to clear up our understanding of the differences between universes and timelines. So bear with me if you've heard this before. So think of universes like trunks of a tree, and then alternate timelines like branches and twigs that stem from that trunk. Trunks, or universes, are entirely separate entities that are not connected and have their own origins, whereas the branches, or variant timelines, stem from those trunk universes. So in one universe, you can have multiple branches of time, and in a wider context of the multiverse, if those trees aren't kept in check, their branches can grow too far and wide that they begin to touch one another.
They're beginning to touch the multiverse.
and a sick and dying tree can get another tree sick and kill it, and that is a good example of an incursion. This is why He Who Remains secluded the sacred timeline and did not allow for branching timelines from Universe 616, and instead just had one big round trunk. But then Loki came along and allowed for that trunk to turn back into its natural state of a tree and expand, and now here we are at Doomsday. So I'm telling you all this so you understand that we think that the X-Men we meet in Doomsday are not from a completely separate universe like 838 or the universe of X-Men 97, but we do think that this is a variant timeline of the original X-Men films.
You lost me.
All right, so from a meta perspective, these are the Fox X-Men the general audience knows and loves, and they're back because of nostalgia, plain simple to the point. But for nerds like us who have questions about inconsistencies, we're to understand that this is for the most part the same universe as the original X-Men films, but it's a slightly different branch of that reality. And there's precedent for this going back to Logan. Logan takes place after the new future we saw in X-Men Days of Future Past, and it's a pretty dark future, almost like the mutant apocalypse was inevitable, like it's a canon event that must always occur. And despite the X-Men's efforts to stop this apocalypse, it winds up happening just a few years later. In this future, all the X-Men are seemingly dead following Charles having a seizure, and Logan was the only one able to survive. Now, in Deadpool and Wolverine and its marketing campaign, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds said that they are not undoing Logan by bringing Hugh back because the events of Logan happen in the future. But the more accurate explanation would be that it happens in an alternate future. When Logan was released, director James Mangold even said that he viewed the film as an alternate timeline to the main timeline films. Now, before we go into Doctor Doom and how he's created by all of this, I want to show you guys this kick-ass new shirt at our merch store for the Latvian Doomsday celebration. Note the year 1984, the original Secret Wars comic release date. We also have Tony Stark creating Ultron, I Hate You 3000, and lots more items in our merch store. The links for those are below. I love that shirt. Mine's in the mail. I can't wait till it gets here. Thank you for supporting our channel. Now, in Deadpool and Wolverine, Logan dying is what doomed this universe because he was their anchor beam.
That is what happens when a universe loses their anchor being.
Now, on the TVA screen, we see the X-Men universe, and it's decaying backwards, like a tree does when it dies. This thick white line is the trunk, but we can also see these branches coming off of it, and they are decaying backwards as the trunk dies. So this means that this universe has many variant branching timelines, but that the death of that prime Logan is affecting the entirety of that universe. Now, I don't expect a Deadpool movie to get too into the nitty-gritty of the multiverse, but this did pose some major questions that still have us scratching our heads on the logistics of how all this works and how they save their universe. See, Deadpool pulled Wolverine from another universe to replace his Wolverine and stop his world from dying, but I don't think that Deadpool simply bringing in another Wolverine is what saved the universe. It wasn't like an Indiana Jones quick swap. This other Wolverine's presence is not what saved the universe. It was Deadpool and Wolverine's willingness to sacrifice themselves. Paradox himself said that it was Logan's sacrifice that was connected to why he was an anchor beam.
Your anchor being died in an act of self-sacrifice so epic that it sent shivers down the timeline.
We think that Deadpool and this new Wolverine's willingness to sacrifice their lives to save their universe made them become the universe's new anchor beams, and that is what restored the timeline. Now, this of course opens up the door to the question of, well, shouldn't there now be two Wolverines in Deadpool's timeline? But that's a good question.
For another time.
We think it's pretty safe to assume that the universe that Monica Rambeau found herself in at the end of the Marvels is the Fox X-Men universe, which is numbered 10005. And I think, for simplicity's sake, it will even be the same branch that Deadpool and the new Wolverine are in. And if that's the case, it would line up perfectly with Days of Future Past. In that new future from Days of Future Past, when Logan wakes up, he has no memory of the past 30 years. The consciousness that had been inhabiting that body all those years was replaced by his time-traveling consciousness that snapped back to
Reality. Oop, there goes gravity.
Doug.
Sorry.
This Logan we see wake up remembers a different history, and the others think he's acting weird. But Logan is just happy to be there, back with his family that he thought he lost forever. And the same is now true for this new Wolverine from Deadpool and Wolverine. He lost his X-Men, his family, everything. He comes from an apocalyptic future where mutants are no more. But now, just like the Logan we see here in Days of Future Past, he's living in a new timeline where the X-Men are alive and well. And while he doesn't remember the specific details of this universe, he's just happy to be home. And that perfectly connects not only Days of Future Past to Deadpool and Wolverine, but it also sets the stage for the events of Avengers Doomsday and the return of the original X-Men. So what we see here is that the actions of the original X-Men when they create branching timelines could also be a cause for incursions. And because Scott and Jean's baby was born of this multiversal tampering, it means this baby could have phenomenal cosmic power. Just like how Steve Rogers married Peggy Carter from another universe, and their child could be a kind of nexus being that frankly should not exist. Doctor Doom could be targeting all of these different kids and nexus beings in order to stabilize reality and form a new universe. Now that's all really complicated, so that's why we think that it's going to boil down to a really simple goal. These dads are looking for their kids.
I just want my kids back.
And so we're going to see Cyclops finally be redeemed in this movie. He's finally going to take a center role, and he's wearing a pretty dope outfit. But what do you guys think about all this? Do you think this is too confusing? Do you think Doomsday is going to be awesome? Are you excited to see the X-Men appear? Big shout out to Colton Ogburn who wrote this video. You can find his links below, and let us know what you think down in the comments, or you can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky Threads, or on our free to join Discord server. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.